It looks like I'm live. Back. Gonna be calling in with Sean with I Collect Tickets. He should be beeping in any minute. We're gonna talk about what's been going on the past couple weeks. I know we didn't do a call last week, but we know some monster sales happening. Looks like there's Sean right now. Looks like he joined the call and he's looking to connect. So let me connect with Sean. And let's see what we got. All right, there he is.
What's up, Mike?
What's going on?
Good to see you.
Yeah, how's it been?
It's been good. It's been good. Lot going on. What's up with you?
I feel like every time I see Seattle sports now, I think about you. I was watching
Well, that's good.
that Seahawks game. Oh, it was so ugly, I couldn't watch it anymore. But I was like, I wonder if Sean's stuck with this one.
Yeah, That's. I don't even really want to get into it. I'm a Seahawks season ticket holder, and the thing about Seattle fans is that they'll drop it like right away if the product isn't very good. And for the first time ever, I had to sell tickets secondary market for $37.
I saw that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Dallas is pretty similar. Dallas is pretty fair weather. If the team's good, everybody loves them. If not, they check out pretty quick.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely not a hard city, unless it's the Cowboys. People always go to the Cowboys games.
Yeah. So what's on the docket this time?
Why not? I think we got to start out with that monster Mantle Debut. It seems like every time I look up, there's a new Mantle Debut going on for sale, and it basically just doubles. I mean,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, I'll put up. I kind of pulled it up on the internet. The most recent sales on Collect Auctions. Let me switch it over here. So this ticket right here is the one that went for sale on classicauctions.net, which we thought was kind of surprising that it was on this auction site, given it's more of a hockey auction site. And we guessed, we're thinking what, 60, 80, maybe 100. And that number we got was like, holy cow, 141,000. Give me your thoughts on that sale.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the uniqueness of the last sale that was 101,000, and we didn't really talk about it, but the section was number 7, and the gate number was number 6 on the previous one, the 101,000.
Right.
And I talked to the guy who bought it, and he made it clear that was one of the driving factors behind it. He thought that was a really unique and cool characteristic of it.
Now, I know, is this a guy, I don't even have to say his name, but is this a guy I know or would know through like Facebook groups or anything, or is this somebody you know?
I don't know. I just met him through his Instagram. So, but he's not in a Facebook group or anything.
Right.
But yeah, that was a major influence on that last sale, the $101,000 one, because it was Mickey Mantle wore the number 6 in that game because he started with number 6, and then of course he became synonymous with the number 7. So both those numbers are featured on the ticket, which makes it kind of unique. But this one, nothing like that. Just an ordinary ticket.
I mean, I haven't been the biggest Mantle fan, but I love the look of the debut ticket just because it's got that big Yankee logo on the front. It's nice and clean looking. It always makes a big difference to me if it's a home game and it has that team logo. But it's just crazy because I remember a year and a half ago, a very similar ticket was like 7,000.
Yeah,
and I was wow, I bid on it, but I bowed out at like 5 or 6. And
yeah, I mean, it got.
maybe I should have bought that one. But not being a big Mantle fan, not being the huge debut collector, more like you are, it's like, well, oh well. But I mean, you win some, you lose some. But yeah, it's just wild. But I like the point you make about the numbers because I feel like in the ticket collectible market, I think that's kind of a not as thought of thing as, say, the card market, where, if you have the player's number, a 10 of 10 or, Brady's 12, I guess if you have the 12 of 25 or something like that, it definitely will go for a premium. But I know I personally don't really think about it too much, but I feel like maybe more of the card guys who are getting into tickets definitely do.
Yeah, and that's something that I've actually gone back through my tickets because I've never looked at anything like that to see if I have any that just happen to have a significant number. Didn't really find much because if it is their
Right.
jersey number, it might, on the section or the seat number or something, it might make it a little bit more of a special ticket. I know another hardcore, like big time collector who has, I don't think you know him, but maybe we'll talk. I'll introduce you to him sometime. But big collector, has the most amazing debut collection I've ever seen. He sent me pictures of it, and he's got 2 different red Jordans with the number 23 as the section number debuts.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like unheard of.
It's like these guys are just hidden out there. You don't know about them, but they're out there.
When you're introduced to one, you realize that the collection that you have, in my case, is kind of just ordinary. It's pedestrian.
Right. No, these guys, like these past 2 guys you mentioned, have they been guys that have been doing it for 10, 15 years? Like, how long do you think these big boys that kind of stay silent?
One of them, yeah.
How long?
And it's like,
how long have they been?
I know a couple that have been in it for so long, and they knew what to look for then. Back when you could pick it up on eBay for $60, some big debut. And that's what they were into, and they were collectors. It wasn't something that they were thinking, oh, down the road I'm going to sell this for $100,000. It was just, I think this is really cool, and I'm going to add it to my collection. So that's why you don't hear about these people, and that's why you don't know them necessarily, because they're not selling. They're just buying. Right.
They're like that one guy. Who's the guy that died and he pulled out all his cards out of his attic and it was worth millions. He had the Babe Ruth signed card. Guys like that. Like, assume one day you'll hear like, oh, so-and-so's collection, and all this unbelievable stuff will pop up. And I'm like, oh my God, where did this come from?
Yeah, because there's people like that and it's kind of how I feel too. I don't know if there's a point, we talked about this a little bit last time, but I don't know if there's a point where the prices get to where I feel compelled to just, sell, because it's just a lot of money. I haven't really considered it because it's never been an issue to think about, but maybe that day will come.
I know. You start seeing 6-figure tickets. What is the ceiling on this stuff? It reminds me a lot when cards were getting crazy, and last year after COVID, 6 months, and you're seeing things, go up 5-10 times in the span of 6 months.
Yeah.
What's the ceiling on this stuff?
Well, at that time, I was a card collector too, and I sold everything. And the reason why is because I knew that I could replace it. Cards are replaceable. You can, as long as you're willing to pay the money, you can pretty much find anything. And obviously, there's some really rare ones that you can't find, but you can go on eBay and buy pretty much anything. And so when the values went up, I just sold them to buy tickets, and that's what I did. And the reason I don't feel the same way about tickets is because it's not replaceable. A lot of them, you sell them, you'll never see it again.
So I go to those card shows. Sometimes I'll put my tickets out for display, and somebody will be asking me, well, how much is this ticket? And I'll say, man, it's not for sale, because if I sell you this ticket, I may never see another one for the next 10 years, because you just don't see certain tickets pop up after a while. And I think that's kind of what's driving a lot of this, is the scarcity of some of these tickets, especially these debuts like the Mantle. I know I wanted to touch on did you see some of those other auction sales from Heritage and Golden?
I looked at them. It's not a lot of them were autograph tickets, right? That that's not my thing.
Right.
But
I was gonna go through these real quick, kind of show a few of them. This Messi 4 went for 11. That's kind of an interesting one, because you see these pop up on eBay all the time, and we talked about people maybe arbitraging, like, oh, I can buy this on eBay, get it graded, and flip it. It's a great ticket, but we're seeing quite a bit of these. But man, on these auction houses, they just kind of go crazy.
Yeah,
I was a little surprised by that price.
Mike, is that one that you know about? Do you know about that ticket? I don't know. I see it all the time, but I don't really know anything about it.
Yeah, his debut ticket. It was on the road in Porto. It was the opening of their stadium, so a lot of people kept their tickets.
Right.
So they're out there, and they're just popping up because people are finding out how valuable are, so people are starting to dig around. But it's kind of like, well, sooner or later they're going to stop popping up, and this is messy.
Yeah.
So what is the supply going to be? The demand will be there. What's the balance? The clearing price. So it's kind of interesting what's going on with that.
Kind of similar to the LeBron James debut. That it used to be so everywhere. You'd see it all the time, but then it starts ending up in collections, and you don't see it anymore. It's a lot harder to come by now.
Right, and that this ticket. What do you think this ticket goes for without the autograph? I mean, 73,000.
That's what I was looking at too. And I think one sold. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think one sold on eBay for 42,000. Is that right? Do you remember?
I remember an autograph one going for about 40,000. I don't remember a non-autograph going that high.
Yeah, but that's.
But you might be right.
But what does it cost to get Tom Brady to sign something?
You're probably looking at least $4,000 now, $3 or $4,000 if it becomes available.
For a little bit of chicken scratch?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the ballpark. I'm not an auto guru, but the big boys, that's kind of what they would charge, $2,000 or $3,000 be my guess.
Yeah, this is interesting to me, and the whole autograph thing. That's how I feel about autographs on tickets. But I'm not really big on autographs in general unless I get them in person. But I'm really discouraged by how bad autographs are nowadays, and that might just be me being old. But it just seems like the Tom Brady autograph. It's just a couple squiggly lines, and that's it. You're paying $4,000 for this.
If anybody out there can find the Vince McMahon autograph, I know you commented on that on Rebellion post the other day.
Yeah, because it's 2 check marks. It's 2.
Yeah, literally a check mark. 2 check marks.
So I'm imagining the person at PSA when it gets sent in to be authenticated, and it's 2 check marks. How do you know that that's Vince McMahon's 2 check marks versus anybody else who just?
Yeah, how do you authenticate that?
And tickets or autographs are getting so simple in that same way. A lot of guys, it's just squiggly line, and then I miss the days of like King Griffey Jr. who actually wrote their name. Right.
Well, I'm looking at some of the Heritage stuff that just went up. Have you looked at some of those auction items?
I don't think so.
So I'll kind of go through them. There might be a few that interest you. We're talking about auto tickets. Here's a Jordan or Bird Magic auto ticket. Jordan's 84 Olympic gold medal ticket. I mean, they got some really nice ones. I just kind of wanted to scroll through to kind of give everybody an idea what's going on up here. If you see anything you want to touch upon, feel free. And then there's quite a few of these Tiger Woods debut tickets, which is interesting also. I've seen about 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah, we talked about that before and how many of those are coming up after that one sold for 40-something thousand, right?
Right. So yeah, in this auction alone, I think there's 6, which you might be able to find value just because, people see a lot of tickets and they get scared away. But it is Tiger Woods, and he is probably the greatest golfer of all time, or one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of scrolling through some of these. Let me see if there's anything else.
I think there was a couple that I was tracking. Oh, one that actually sold that I was kind of interested in, but I didn't actually bid on it, was the Phil Mickelson debut that was signed.
Oh, I bid on that too, but it went way higher than what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like 4,000. I thought that was a great ticket. But it wasn't meant to be. Some of the other ones that have been surprised me is these college debuts for like Brady, how much they've been going for. I've seen a few go for like 2,000 or 3,000. This is the first start. There's a few other Brady stuff in here, like Dan Marino debut. But yeah, that Heritage auction, definitely anybody check it out. And Sean, I'd be curious if you see anything that you gravitate towards. There's a Babe Ruth, I think, called Shot. I'm kind of curious to see what that goes for now.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
and see, Beach Club bought the Mickelson.
That was a good one.
I liked it. I really liked it. You don't see those out there, and it was just a nice looking ticket. It's Phil Mickelson. But that was
like compare that to all these Tom Brady's out there. That it's like Tom Brady signs everything. But how often do you see a Phil Mickelson signed debut? That's you don't see that very often. It's way more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, these guys will have signings, and that's when everybody sends their stuff in. But I guess they may get to a point where they're too big, and it just doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, but it seems like you can add what $10,000 to the value if you just get it signed. So I understand why people are doing it.
It's just crazy, but I mean, it is what it is. That's what the market dictates.
Yeah, there was a couple other ones in the golden auction. The one, I think it was the Mike Trout sign debut, and you see those everywhere too.
Right.
It was 13 or 14,000, and that's like, you know, one of those raw goes for 600 or 700, I think. If you, it was a PSA 9, so obviously that played into it, but you get them to sign. Right. It's just, yeah. So, but the golden, a lot of signed Tom Brady, more signed Tom Brady on the Heritage. It's just the squiggly line. Although I was going to comment on the fact that the ones that are where he actually has to inscribe it, he actually has to write words that are legible. I wonder what that.
Right. Yeah, I like the inscription. But yeah, here's a couple other ones I thought. See, they got a PSA 7 LeBron full ticket. Here, see what that goes for. I think an 8 went for 40. I mean, here's a good question. Look at Heritage. They put the estimate at 5. I mean,
yeah.
I don't really care for estimates on auction houses. Let's just see what happens. Then they put a number.
I've always wondered about that too. And sometimes you see estimates that are just absolutely ridiculously low that you know it's going to go for way more than that. And I don't know if it's an effort to increase the interest, because when I see an estimate that is in my ballpark, then I'm like, okay, maybe I can win that.
And now look at this one. LeBron debut stub 5 estimate $500. Like, come on, seriously, it's going to go for way more than that. If it's for 500, I'll buy that all day, every day. Yeah, I just don't really understand sometimes what they're doing. And I think if you're going to sell auction tickets, I think Golden's the way to go right now. It seems like they get the best prices. I think so, from what I've seen lately. But as we saw with the Mantle debut, if you got something unique, it's going to go for a big number.
Yeah.
No matter what it's on.
What do you think that LeBron full PSA 7 will go for?
I think probably about 30 or 40. I mean, that one on eBay that was an 8, I think went for about 40. So that's what I would guess. It's somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, that's a good test, because if it far exceeds that, then it
right. And I think there's 25, 30 of them out there. I mean, I don't think people should get too crazy going wild on it, just because there's quite a few of them compared to other debuts.
Yeah, for sure.
I know we talked a little bit through text, or I saw in the Facebook group. I pulled this up, and we want to talk a little bit about, shill bidding, how prevalent you think it is in tickets. VDG just mentioned PSA 9 went for 42, so that was the highest graded. So we'll see what it goes for. Maybe 30. Yeah.
Interesting.
But shill bidding, how much do you think of a player this is in the ticket world? We know it happens in the card world. We know all eBay auctions, people are going to shill their bids up, but we had an incident that happened in the ticket world that kind of was a big deal, the Boogers Ticket Stub group.
Yeah.
I might as well show you basically what happened was, so the Deion Sanders auto first game went for $42.50, and the buyer of this basically didn't pay and ended up admitting that he had a similar ticket, right, that he was trying to bid up.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody put it back up later, and it sold for $2,000, the exact same ticket at auction, which is kind of interesting that you would figure it'd go within 500 to 1,000 of what the first auction went for, but went for $2,000. And then it's just like, well, what's going on there? It's just more fun than we think. Do you think it's more of a one-off?
I think, well, I have a lot of thoughts on this. One, it really sucks for the seller in that situation, because they're the ones who got screwed, because maybe it wouldn't have gone for, if the shilling hadn't happened, it wouldn't have gone for the 4,000, whatever. But whenever somebody posts something and it sells, and then you see it again right away, I automatically just discard it. Like I won't even
Like you
touch
think
it.
there's something wrong with it. Like this is
Absolutely. Or there's
something's off. Something's wrong.
there's something going on in the back end. They're not going to let it go for a deal or whatever. They want more for it or, whatever. So it's not even on my radar. And I know a lot of people are like that. They see it, they just, it's nothing. So posting it right after something like that happened is just, it's a no-win, unfortunately. Like
Right.
if you move it, you don't really have a choice, but that sucks. The second part of it is that I I think it kind of reveals that this kind of thing happens more than we realize, and it's not. And when we're talking about shill bidding, it's not necessarily the person who owns it. It's somebody who may not even know the person who owns it, but owns the same item, and they're trying to increase the value of their item, and they're okay with buying it because it'll increase the value of their item and the perceived value of the item that they bought. So is that shill bidding? Not really, because you're actually buying it and you're actually
you actually pay for the item.
Right. But at the same time, there's a lot of that goes on and they don't win it, and they're perfectly happy with that too because they just increase the value of it. So there's not really any way to guard against that, unfortunately, but that's just kind of the reality of the game, I think. And I think that happens a lot more than people realize, and how often. And this incident just kind of pulled back the curtain on one incident that kind of gave us a peek into what it's like. But who knows how often that's happening,
Right. I think, we had a comment from art_connoisseur. It said, common for a new market that is developing. Look at shenanigans in video games. And I've read about that. And I think nobody really knows for sure, how much shenanigans. But I think with any, like he says, not a deep or liquid market and people trying to develop price floors is a good point. That's the kind of stuff you're going to see. Kind of like you said, if you have something, you want to create that floor, like, well, look what that sold for. Oh, I got one too. I'm going to put mine up for auction, and here's the comp. We got a new comp. Just kind of stairwell and higher and higher and higher.
Yeah, and that has an impact on everything else too. It's just like the same thing. If it's not, Mickey Mantle debut, it's Ken Griffey Jr. debut. Like everybody sees the connection between all of them. So it has a ripple effect, just like with cards. The same thing applies. So I don't know. It's important to be careful and ultimately just buy what you like. I think that is said a lot, and it's so true. It's true in anything, and not spend too much if you don't think it's right. I think that it also is a reminder on how to deal with eBay. And I don't know, you sell on eBay, so maybe you have more insight to this, but I cannot understand. Maybe you can convince me a reason why you would bid on an eBay item with any time left outside of a snipe bid at the end of the auction. Like, why would you bid on?
I don't know, maybe if you want to drive up the price initially high, that kind of scares people away. Sometimes people get into that auction and they get into like, oh, I'm only going to bid this much, but now they get into it. But, I feel like the snipe bid, like Gixen, the GIXEN.com, where they come in, you can auto bid at the end.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I use. You don't have to keep an eye on it. You don't have to keep track what time it ends. Yeah. You just put your high price in and it does it. But then again, you better put your highest price, because if you miss out, you may feel like, oh man, I would have went higher, because you get in that auction and you realize how much you really want something. But sometimes you bid too much and you have a little bidder's remorse. But hopefully it'll turn out well in the end, that you're happy with your purchase.
I think for me, when it's a rare item that you don't see very often, somebody else bids it up, it kind of just gives me time to reset my expectation and kind of recalibrate what I'm willing to spend if it's more than what I thought to begin with. And so it's definitely not, there's no benefit to it, in my opinion. And the idea, with all the snipe bidding services out there, maybe a lot of people aren't aware of them, and maybe people are new to eBay and they don't really understand how important it is to not reveal your bid early. So I'm not saying that. I always assume, and this is maybe a cynical way of thinking about it, but I always assume that if it's bid up early, there's some shill bidding going on. and so I'm less interested in it if that's the case. But
Right.
that's because I've been through so many times, I think.
Yeah, I remember I bid on that Wilt 100 ticket a few years ago in Heritage. It kept coming down to like the last 5 seconds, and somebody would bid, and they did it like 4 times. And I just got so frustrated. I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this. I feel like something's rigged. The guy's always going to bid more because he owns it. You know, something like that. And you kind of get frustrated when you feel like there's some weird things going on. That maybe he was just smart and going to wait me out and be like, well, I'm going to bid at the last moment. Maybe this guy will just get tired, which, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I wish I had that ticket because I'm not getting one now. I'm not going to spend $150K on it.
Do you remember what the final bid?
I think it went for 13, 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Something like that.
See, I think that there's a different strategy when you're dealing with those kinds of auctions versus eBay. eBay, it's a snipe bid at the end and that's it, right? Like that's the only way to go. But with those kinds of auctions that have the extended time, especially if it's the long extended time where the entire auction gets extended with one bid, it's more of a waiting game. It's more of just wait till the last second.
Sometimes those people end up 1 or 2 in the morning, and you're just like, man, I don't want to stay up, but I don't want to put my highest bid, because sometimes I get into this, and I don't want to just put a flat number in, because maybe I want more, and I want to beat this guy, and I really want this ticket.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And that's what the people on the West Coast are thinking. The people on the East Coast, is like 4 o'clock in the morning. They're asleep. So the people on the West Coast are thinking.
And then you got to change the numbers you have because things are going for way more, but I really want it. You got to weigh how much I want to spend. It's just, you know, it's hard when things
just wait them out, to just outlast them. And there's a funny story about that. There was an auction in, I think it was Mile High did a big auction with a bunch of debuts a couple of years ago, and I was bidding on them, and I was up until like 1 o'clock in the morning bidding on these things. That's how I got the Nolan Ryan debut and the Ricky Henderson debut. Got a bunch of debuts out. It was the best auction I've ever participated in. And I met later on somebody who was also really wanting the Nolan Ryan, the Ricky Henderson, and he saw that I won them and he connected on it, and he said that he was flying trying to use the internet on an airplane, and he couldn't get the internet to work to place his bids. And so that's why I ended up winning them. Otherwise he would have.
Well, we all have our wins and losses, that's for sure.
Yeah, just lots of stories.
So have you bought anything in the last couple weeks?
I got a couple basic tickets that are just like one. Let's see. This came together as a group. This is Bryce Harper's debut. I already had one. It's nothing to write home about. But Bryce Harper is one of the most underrated superstars, I think, in baseball right now. He had an MVP season, and people just kind of write him off because they don't like him.
It's kind of like the card world, where you start out, you're the hot young thing, and you're the it thing. Yeah. And then after 4 or 5 years, if you haven't really won a title or done something huge, well, the next hot thing has already come around and you've kind of been forgotten. But it's not like Bryce Harper. I mean, I can remember trying to sell his debut like 2 years ago for like $50 and nobody will buy it. I don't even know what do they go for now?
It's probably about that same, maybe even less for Raw, because it's very common. It's a very common ticket, but he's only 28. I think he had his 28-year season last season, and he's already having a Hall of Fame career. So it's, I already have one, but it came in this group. It also came with the Mike Trout first hit, which I didn't have. Also a pretty common ticket. And then this was the one that I wanted that I didn't have, was the Jose Altuve debut. Yeah. Oh,
Altuve. Man, that's something those Astro guys, that whole scandal, I think, really crushed, the collectors' appetite for their tickets. So I thought Altuve, with his style of play, his height, his his aura, he could just be a guy that people would love. And now it's just everybody hates the Astros. Like, who's rooting for the Astros in the World Series, right? Nobody, unless you live in Houston.
But do you think that the collecting community will get over it faster than they do like steroids?
I don't know. I mean, you have to be a pretty big name. I remember like when LeBron went to Miami, everybody was down on him and hated him. I feel like every player monster player, sooner or later people kind of pull away from him. Like, look at Mahomes right now. I feel like people are like, oh, Mahomes isn't that great this year. His stuff is still crazy expensive, but the bloom, there's actually a negative thing to his game now, to his, I guess people see him now collecting him. It's not like, oh my gosh, he's going to win 7 Super Bowls. Now people are like, oh my gosh, is he going to win another Super Bowl? He's got one, but now it's just not a sure thing that they're going to roll out and score 40 and go to the Super Bowl or AFC Championship every year.
Yeah. Same thing with Russell Wilson. he's not very popular anymore. But it's in the NFL. You never know. It can change really fast.
Yeah.
So what about you? Anything new?
No, I kind of just haven't been bought too much. I've kind of been looking at some more concert tickets. I'm kind of a big music fan. I saw like that Elvis final concert. I don't know if I'm going to spend that much on something like that. But just kind of branching out. I bought some old like Live Aid tickets and things like that kind of interest me.
So with concert tickets, what is the chase? Like what do you try to collect certain bands, or are there certain rare tickets?
Last concert tickets are popular, historic events. It's more that it's not really the debuts because they start in random clubs. I think if you can find some really early dates, like I'm in Dallas. I live in Dallas. I'd really like to get a Beatles full Dallas tickets when they came through, just because I think it's cool. I live in Dallas. I'm like, wow, the Beatles played right down the road, things like that. But it seems like, historic events or last tickets or things like that. If you're a music guy, you kind of know certain dates. But I haven't really, going too crazy. There's not really just much out there, and they all kind of blend together. Somebody goes on a tour, but I could see people being like, "Oh, I want to collect all the Pink Floyd, the Wall tour tickets, things like that." I could see that becoming more of a thing in the future. Of these, huge famous guys, maybe like Jimi Hendrix or somebody who didn't play that many shows. I feel like concert tickets are starting. I see that popping up more, especially like on Booger Stubs, people posting concert tickets.
Yeah. I agree.
And some of the other random sports, I've seen some F1 stuff lately. So it's kind of interesting. Things are more branching out.
What's the deal with F1? Why is that becoming such a big thing?
It's blowing up because of Netflix. They got that Netflix series, and now I think I read at the U.S. F1 race, 2 years ago they had like 190,000. This year they had almost 400,000. So it almost doubled from 2 years ago. So people are really getting into it. I know the F1 cars are really getting big, really popular. The drivers people are all into. There's 20 of them, basically. It's not my thing, but it's just interesting to see what has become popular lately. So just seeing what's happened with the tickets and cards and everything.
Yeah. Same with soccer. It seems like soccer is becoming a big. I know that there's a considerable international community that collects soccer tickets, and it's
I feel like soccer tickets. I feel like they were ahead of the game than America when it comes to tickets. Like there's all those guys from UK and other countries that way that are big time into tickets, and they got all these players. I'm like, man, I don't know these guys. I'm like, I'm not big into the Euro soccer or Premier League guys and all things. They're like, oh, you want so and so to debut? I was like, man, I wish I know more about him because I'm sure it's worth something. It's probably a good deal, but I don't even know who this guy is that played in the 50s or 60s, the equivalent of like Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
And they look at Mickey Mantle and be like, who? But that's kind of their equivalent, I think, for some of these soccer guys.
The other thing about soccer is that I don't know, because they have all these different leagues and all the different, the friendlies and the exhibition, all that. So what is somebody's debut? In the U.S., if you ask somebody, would they rather have their pro debut or their major league debut, you definitely rather have the major league debut, even though the pro debut came earlier. I
think soccer, it's a lot of times they'll start on smaller clubs that are professional, and then once they've shown how great they are, the big clubs pick them up. They buy their contract. Like Real Madrid will say, all right, this kid's amazing. He's playing over some small rinky-dink soccer operation. We're going to buy him out. He's going to come here. Well, guess what? Like whoever Messi or Ronaldo, like FC Sporting, I think is where Ronaldo started, which is, pretty small compared to, basically Barcelona or Madrid or Manchester United. So like those tickets are pretty rare and, they're hard to find just because it's just not many out there. It's a smaller
So it's
soccer
not
organization.
the desired ticket is the pro debut, not necessarily the league debut in the
Right, more the pro debut. They play like a friendly or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you have the international debut or the World Cup debut, stuff like that. So there's different layers to it.
Yeah.
But the big ones are always their professional debut, and they count those friendlies or something.
It seems compared to U.S. market, it seems like relatively inexpensive. Is that
Right. I think that's what blew them away is what these debuts were going for, because over there debuts aren't a thing, and then all of a sudden American people are going wild for debut tickets. They're like, man, I can get this ticket for next to nothing, sell it to an American for 20 times what I bought from it from some fan that has been holding on to it for 20 years.
That's interesting. Yeah. I just don't know enough about international soccer to really get into it. But it seems like a good market to be into.
Yeah, definitely growing. There's more soccer fans every day in America. But not my thing. I'm a big three guy, football than basketball. But like I said, buy what you love, buy what you like, what you want to collect, buy what you're into, and then over time, it's more likely something like that'll be worth something because somebody will think like you do instead of just buying to flip, buying to make money.
Yeah, no question.
So we got anything else tonight? I know we're about 35, 40 minutes in. That's usually about a good stopping point.
Yeah, I think it was a good discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
Got a lot done.
So maybe next week we'll see what's going on. Maybe in 2 weeks, but post something on Instagram. Maybe to try to do another one. I'm sure, and then kind of put out a little flyer like, "Hey, we're doing it tonight." But I'll post this on IG Live, and go from there.
Sounds good. Maybe we'll see some more crazy sales in the meantime.
I'm curious to see what those Heritage, those LeBrons, and a few of those tickets go for. That full ticket will be very interesting.
Yeah.
That's kind of I think the next big one I'm looking to see what that sale goes for.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
Good talking to you, and we'll see you next week.
All right, next week. Have a good one.